This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's special guest is an internationally acclaimed actress, model, author, producer, director, humanitarian, and inspirational speaker whom we all fell in love with in 1970 when legendary director Howard Hawks cast her opposite John Wayne in the classic film Rio Lobo. She was then catapulted into global superstardom in another cinematic masterpiece, Summer of 42, which led to a string of other great movies, including Such Good Friends, The Carey Treatment, Lady Ice, The Reincarnation of Peter Proud, The Innocent, The Psychic, Scanners, Last Ounce of Courage, Reagan, and many more. On television, we remember her as Lady Bobbi Rowan in Bare Essence, Danielle Reynolds in Cover Up, and she was Messalina in the highly acclaimed 1985 miniseries AD. She's also appeared in a lot of TV movies, including Love's Savage Fury, The Other Victim, Chase, The Red Spider, Glory Days, Perfect Family, The Covergirl Murders, On Music Row, and many more. And if all of that weren't enough, she was the model and spokesperson for CoverGirl Cosmetics for an unprecedented 30 years. And her iconic advertising campaigns have been preserved in the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. But far beyond her show business career, our guest has had a monumental impact through her writing, advocacy, humanitarianism, and public speaking. She's written two highly compelling, emotionally powerful, and inspirational memoirs, From Fallen to Forgiven and Surviving Myself, in which she candidly shares her struggles with fame, love, numerous marriages, and a number of personal tragedies. Her incredibly moving book entitled You're Not Alone, Healing Through God's Grace After Abortion has been a source of wisdom, enlightenment, solace, and comfort to millions of women who have experienced what our guest has gone through. She's also written 4 novels, All That Glitters, A Fall Together, A Winter of Wonders, and A Late Spring Frost. Our guest is also a renowned advocate for numerous charitable causes. She served as chairperson for the American Cancer Society. She hosted a TV special from Africa about the HIV epidemic. And she runs a hugely beneficial therapeutic program at her horse farm in Nashville called the Hope and Healing at Hill & Glade Foundation, which provides supportive programs to military veterans and first responders suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm delighted to welcome the one and only JenniferONeill to our show. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Harvey, what a delight. What a delight. Thank you so much. That made my head spin. I've been busy.
That is an understatement. You were born in Brazil, raised in America. I was very struck by something you wrote about your childhood. You said you didn't have adequate role models as a child, and you described your parents as totally self-absorbed. Would you say that you had a difficult or an unhappy childhood?
No, I have to tell you that I absolutely adored my parents. They lived with me for 30 years. My dad was a war hero in World War II. My mother was English. They met in a key club, married. They were like Ronnie and Ronald Reagan and his wife. When I say self-absorbed, they just were madly in love and not so sure why they had kids. I'm glad they did. I had an invisible childhood. I grew up with parents that thought that we should be seen and not heard. And so I thought I could earn love through straight A's and taking care of them. But they were fabulous, stunning people.
As a young teenager, you had enormous success as a model. You were on the cover of the most prestigious magazines by the age of 15. What made you decide to pursue acting and get into the neighborhood playhouse?
Well, first of all, I started working at 15 to buy a horse. My parents moved into Manhattan and I loved animals. So I thought, no one's going to take that away from me again. And I started working. So I got my horse. That didn't fill the big hole. So I got married at 17. At that point, I didn't like I loved the CoverGirl people. They were fantastic. But being a model didn't float my boat necessarily. So I wanted to be an actress and I wanted to study. So I had my child, and then I studied for 2 years before I did the John Wayne movie.
And there you were, like so early in your acting career, you found yourself working with legendary actors, not only John Wayne, there was Anthony Quinn, James Mason, Donald Sutherland, Robert Duvall, so many others.
You do your homework. Yes, you do.
But was it intimidating to be around all those legends?
Well, it was kind of slow motion because you do one movie and get used to it. I have to share this about John Wayne. I was a snob. I came out of neighborhood playhouse, and when they offered me the role with John Wayne, I said, I don't I want to work with an actor. And it was the year that he won his Academy Award for True Grit. Was the nicest man on the face of the earth, helped the young actors. I was such a fool. And whenever I get a chance to mention that, I do. So after working with John Wayne, what else is there? But Robert Duvall was a great actor, and Anthony Quinn was bigger than life and a little difficult. So stardom doesn't necessarily make it easy, but John Wayne was the biggest star in the world, and he was the easiest gentleman I've ever worked with.
And then you had the incredible impact of Summer of 42. It's hard to believe, Jennifer. I went and watched the movie last night to prepare for today. You were only on screen for 12 minutes.
The secret of that was Michel Legrand's incredible instrumental theme song. I gave him his Academy Award, Michel, for that song. And so I think the secret of my being in that movie so little and yet has such impact was that every time the boys thought about the character Dorothy, that theme would come on and it would just move you around. So I give that to the song.
Well, I think that's very humble of you. It doesn't surprise me knowing you, but you must have been surprised by the public reaction to your performance in that movie. I mean, everybody knew your name instantly.
That was interesting. I wish I had known the business a little bit better. I remember Rogers and Cowan. How does that come to my mind now? But PR firm saying to me when the film came out, if you hire us, we will guarantee you will get a supporting actress nomination. And silly me, I said, well, if the people want to give that to me, they will. I'm not going to campaign for it. Well, that's not how the industry works, as you well know. But I was humbled by that movie. My favorite movie was L'Innocente with Giancarlo Giannini. But Summer of 42 was magical because it wasn't lascivious at all. It was so beautifully made by Mulligan, the director of Grapes of Wrath, and just excellent. And I was just honored to be a part of it.
It's fascinating to me that you got the role because the director said many times he was initially looking to cast an older woman in the role of Dorothy. You were only 23. It's amazing you even got an audition.
That's why I have the white hair now. I'm waiting for the next older woman role. It was. I was an old 23. I've been married for 5 years. I had a child. And so there was a big difference between that 18-year-old and that 23-year-old. And Mulligan said on two issues, the age, but also that's when nude scenes were happening and it wasn't part of my agenda. I didn't want to do them. So he acquiesced and said, if you're the right person for this role, we will work around it. And he did. And I think it made it even more mysterious and interesting.
Oh, for sure. When we had Diane Cannon on our show a few months ago, she said that I love her too. She said that Otto Preminger, who directed you in Such Good Friends, was extremely difficult to work with. Do you agree with her?
Oh, he was a monster. He was, I say that about very few people because I don't like to be negative. But when I say he's a monster, he had done some talented works in film, directing them, of course. This wasn't one of them. And I think he was frustrated, but he was kind of a tyrant. So I remember he wanted me to do a scene and I was a nurse or something, and he popped a popper, which was in the scene, but it was a real one, almost knocked me out. And he would do things like that to catch you off guard, and he was mean. He was nasty. And Diane did a I don't know how she handled that because she was the lead in that movie. And I didn't really get to know her that well, other than I love her, because she had to go back into her trailer and recover from how nasty he was.
And it's just so unnecessary.
It is. It is.
Well, besides Preminger, you've worked with some great directors like Howard Hawks, Blake Edwards, Robert Mulligan, David Cronenberg, Luchino Visconti, of course. Do you have a favorite director?
Visconti. I did his last film before he died. And that'll tie the story with John Wayne together. John Wayne told me when he was kind of coaching me, never remember your lines so well that they aren't fresh and new, and you're listening really deeply every time you hear what you're responding to. Because you can get used, you know what the person's going to say. And if you ever have the same take, you're acting. So I went off to Europe and did the Visconti picture, and everyone was speaking a different language. Giancarlo Giannini was speaking Italian, I was speaking English, other people were speaking French because they dub everything. And I was so thankful for that piece of advice that the Duke gave me, because I really had to listen to what they were saying when I didn't understand the language. So it was
L'Innocente was a beautiful movie. And then
yes.
you played Messalina, the third wife of Roman Emperor Claudius in the TV miniseries AD. How
Yeah.
did you prepare to play a real historical figure?
I just really let it go with her. I remember the mascara going down the face, and she was crazy, and I'm crazy sometimes. So I just stepped into those boots for a moment. It wasn't a big role, but she was a powerful lady.
And then another real person you played most recently was President Reagan's mother, Nell Reagan. How did you prepare for that role?
Well, first of all, I'm a Reagan fan. I went to the White House when the Reagans were there. Dennis Quaid, I played of course Reagan, and I played his mom. That was the biggest compliment I felt, because Nell was a key element in shaping Reagan, who I think was one of our best presidents. And her faith, she was a very faithful woman. And I was doing a role with the producer 20 years ago. And he looked at me and he said, I want you to play Nellie. I'm going to make the movie Reagan, and I want you to play Nellie because of your faith in Jesus Christ. And she gave that to her son and supported her son. So it was really an honor. If you blink, you don't see me, but she was a big part of his life, like Nancy. Nancy, he had two women in his life.
We saw you even when we blinked, believe me. Now, of course, we all remember your TV show from the 80s, Cover Up, and the whole world was shocked and terribly, terribly saddened by the death of your co star, John Eric Hexum, when he was fooling around on the set with a gun loaded with a blank cartridge. And then
Yeah.
2 years later, Jen, you suffered a near fatal gunshot wound, which was a total accident. You must have been devastated when John Eric passed away.
I actually think that my accident with the gun came before, because I was petrified of guns. Doing Cover Up, I played a detective, and so I think it was before. John would play with the guns like a kid. He was an up and coming major star, wonderful guy, running on empty, going out doing citizens arrests at night, being the lead in I think he was overtired, not paying attention. And it was devastating. I didn't have my faith at that time, and I didn't know if John did either. But I know that he donated his organs, and he was just what a loss. What a loss. And that's the point. You just don't know what's going to happen and how long you're going to be here. So
Well, you really live by that because you've made every single moment count. And I'm just wondering, of all the roles you've played over the years, is there one that resonates with you more powerfully than all the others?
I think in regard to impact, especially in the States, with Summer 42 and Rio Lobo, like you said. In Europe, it was Visconti. In my heart, it was the Reagan movie, just being able to play for a nanosecond that iconic woman, that mother.
I want to ask you now, Jen, about the many aspects of your life and particularly the traumatic events and struggles that you've chosen to share with the public through your books. You've been very open about your many marriages, the miscarriages, 4 near death experiences, your mental health issues. You even wrote about the sexual abuse of your daughter by one of your husbands. And of course, there's the abortion, which we'll talk about in a minute. What motivated you to open your life up and open your heart so completely to the public? Because you didn't have to do that.
No, I didn't. And when I wrote Surviving Myself, CBS wanted to do a miniseries on it, and I passed because I think they were more interested in the salacious side of my life, the difficulties of my life, the sexual abuse of my daughter. It was a very honest book. I had to think about it a long time, but I wrote it because I wanted to write about how my faith changed my life and meeting Jesus Christ changed my life. I've been, by the way, married now for 29 years. So when I finished the book, Surviving Myself, I sent it to Elizabeth Taylor. We have this theme, all actors, kind of are kind to each other. And I said, read this because I wanted her to hear about Jesus. And she called me back and she said, Jennifer, we have a lot in common. We both don't date men, we marry everyone, and we're both hard to kill. So she, at least I know that she heard it. And then later on, Kathy Ireland, I was reading an article and she said that some of her best times with Elizabeth Taylor was doing Bible study because Elizabeth was her mentor in the perfume area of her life, of Kathy's life. So yay for the word of God. And that's why I wrote it. And it had to be honest. And everybody I wrote about, I had read the book and asked their permission, of course. My parents passed on it, delighted, and so did my daughter, because I believe that things that happen to us or the things that we allow in our lives also come along with a platform where you can speak to it, having been there, done that, didn't get a t-shirt for it, and such as the abortion issue, where you have a voice of someone who's actually gone through it and didn't want it and all of that.
Well, it's very clear from your books, Jen, that fame was an incredibly difficult and toxic aspect of your life. And you've spoken very passionately about the destructive aspects of superstardom and glamour and money. I mean, one of your most powerful key messages that I got from the book is that all that glitters is not gold. But when you look back and you look at your other friends in show business, do you think there is a healthy way to deal with fame?
Sure. I mean, I've seen some people do it very well, but it's a tough one to tango with, especially if you are not grounded. And for me, when I came to my faith, I was 38 years old. I'm 77 now, and I moved to Nashville. And I was, as I am with all things, I was madly in love with Jesus, and I still am. And I wanted to shout it from the rooftops, and it was not user friendly in Hollywood at that time. So I would say that I was pretty much blackballed. And I came to Nashville to be in an easier place to develop my faith. Did a lot of Christian movies. I'm sorry to say that, we don't serve a $1.98 God, and I'd like them with all the best intentions that they have. They've got to raise the bar so that we make movies with values, not Bible thumping, that are excellent. So people go to see that too.
So then why don't you want to turn your book, Surviving Myself, into a movie?
Honestly, and I understand it, they wouldn't give me final cut. And honestly, I think that they would take the story and leave out the reason why I wrote it, or not put as much balance into why I wrote it. You can open up any can of worms and any intense life or storyline, and that's one thing. But the beauty of writing something where there's an answer. So I had no trouble other than my abortion was really hard for me to face, but I wrote about it. And it probably took me 10 years to receive the forgiveness that was always there for me in that issue, because that was the hardest one for me. But I wasn't sure that it would be produced, although they were good people at CBS, in the right balance. So I passed on it.
You were probably right. And before we talk about abortion, I want to mention a very important issue that you brought attention to, Jen, which resonates very deeply with me. I'm not sure if you know this, Jen, but before I started hosting this show, I was a family and criminal court judge for 26 years. Did you know that?
I didn't realize that. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Well, the reason I mention it is because you wrote very candidly about the sexual abuse of your daughter by one of your husbands. And one of the reasons you had difficulty knowing whether to believe her was because the perpetrator was such a good liar that
Yes.
he was able to fool several lie detector tests. And that's a very, very important point that you've brought attention to. Lie detector tests, also called polygraphs, are not 100% reliable. That's why the courts don't use them. And I really want to commend you for bringing attention to that very important issue.
Yes, he was a masterful liar. And 35, 40 years ago, this was not an issue that people spoke about. It has always been happening, but everybody would sweep it under the carpet. So there have been people that have been accused falsely, and that's the card he played. And he was masterful at it. So, but a lie detector test is not, as you said, people should know that. And then he was exonerated, but I have to say, and he's now passed, but his name was John Lederer, and he did it again to the next family. And so sexual abusers will not get better if they can at all without help and without recognizing the issues. So he did it again. My daughter came in like the Lone Ranger and talked to the girl, the 18-year-old, and caught him on a police recording confessing what he did to her, and he went to jail.
Your daughter wore a wire and got him to admit what he'd done.
Yes, 10 years later.
God bless her.
I know.
So, Jen, you're a very strong and very vocal advocate against abortion. You had an abortion at the age of 22 and you profoundly regret it. And you
Yeah.
strongly believe that abortion is wrong. What do you say to women who disagree with you and who believe that a woman should have the right to control her own body?
Well, first of all, it's not her own body. It's a different DNA and it's a responsibility. We're not designed to kill our children. I mean, on a bad day. And I know the pressures. The pressures are amazing on girls to finish school or do this, or the parents who unwittingly want to help their child go on after an unexpected pregnancy, and they choose what they think is the easy way out. To let women know that the aftermath, if you've had an abortion and you have no regrets, I have no conversation with you in terms of that's how you handled it. And it's a foreign to me. I can't, I just, I suffered like most women in postpartum deals with abortion, and I had 9 miscarriages and thought I was being paid back for that heinous act I allowed. I didn't want the abortion at all, but I was forced. 85% of women getting abortions are coerced in some fashion. And there are so many other answers to the problem, from adoption, places to go and help. So I just really encourage anyone who finds themselves in an unexpected pregnancy to really know, take a beat, take as long as you take to learn how to take a driver's test and find out the statistics of higher rates of alcoholism and depression and suicide and inability to deal with the children you have and not be able to have children. I mean, there are many things that happen to a large majority of not only the women, and oh Lord, can you even imagine the man in the picture who wants the baby and has nothing to say about it, and he's the father. So it's not your own body. You got your own body unless you've been raped. And by the way, rape and incest, only 2% of the women and girls who have suffered rape or incest choose abortion. Only 2%. And I believe that's because they can relate to the violence that was perpetrated to them, what the violence will be to the baby they're carrying in the womb. So they don't want to do that to their own child, even though they didn't ask for that issue.
Well, regardless of one's position about abortion, I think it's worthwhile and important to point out that when a woman has an abortion, that is a highly emotional and traumatic event for her, even if she doesn't regret doing it, don't you think?
It has to be. I mean, we're not, it has to be. And I had already had a child. So even though the doctors at that point were saying it's a blob of tissue, it's a cluster of cells, the fact that we have laws allowing abortion all the way up to the 9th month, and I'm not judging any woman that had an abortion. I understand the stress and the strain and the force that may lay bare on them. And then there are women, honestly, that use it like birth control. So I think most women are pretty silent about their abortions, even though they may say they don't regret it. I can understand that because it's a hard thing to wrap your heart and your head around, is taking the life of your own child.
Well, I'm certainly not in a position to comment or pass judgment on anyone's personal beliefs, but
Yeah,
Jen, I
absolutely.
really respect and appreciate you bringing attention to the need and the entitlement that every woman has for healing and support, no matter how they choose to deal with an unwanted pregnancy.
Absolutely. If you've had an abortion, there is healing and there is hope, and you're not going to be punished, and you don't have to hide it and have it come out in all different ways in your life. And if you are fine with it, then there you go. That's your choice. But it isn't a separate life. It is, I just think that education, ignorance is not bliss in this occasion. And look at what it will have the effect on you and your family as well.
Yeah, I'm a full believer in making informed decisions about everything important in your life. So tell me about the public speaking you do. What do people expect when they come to hear you speak?
I had you mention all that glitters is not gold. I wrote a novel about that, but that's the theme. When I do women's conferences, I basically take them on memory lane and show them some footage and this and that. And I have a range of ages of females from 15 to 80. And the theme is that something that looks so good on the outside can hurt so badly on the inside. So never assume that just because you're on the cover of magazines or in movies that all is well. That is not the source of true happiness. It's a wonderful career if it doesn't eat you alive. And it didn't eat me alive. It gave me a run for my money. That's
Well,
all.
you have demonstrated incredible resilience throughout your entire life, which I believe comes from your faith.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know how I got to 38. I came to my faith, how I managed not to expire during those times. My faith is my anchor, and as I say, I have a 29-year, 30-year relationship, a 29-year marriage now that I attribute just to my husband and I just look up and say, "Thank you, Lord, for this chance." I have not an organization. I have a retreat for girls 13 to 15 and 16 to 18 to come, those who want to get grounded in their faith before they go off to college and out to that woke world, and really look at the yardstick by which you should see yourself. And if you see yourself as God sees you, you'll be very stable. If you see yourself as what somebody wrote about in Facebook or somebody else, or comparisons, you might wobble a bit. So we want to instill that in the young ladies.
Are you seeing among those young ladies an issue, because you mentioned social media, are you seeing an issue with cyberbullying?
Oh, I mean, as I said, I'm 77 and there was bullying. There's always been bullying and so forth, but cyberbullying is and trafficking and the things that our young people are going through right now are insane. And who they look to as heroes and in our, it's just that unless you're coming from a very unusual family that's whole and strong and instills positive, healthy self-esteem so that you can go out in the world, because you're going to be barraged by a lot. And the cyberbullying is just bigger than the kid in school. It's huge. It's huge. The suicide rates are for our military, which is why I do the equine therapy for the last 15 years. They are 22 a day at least, and our teens are going through hell, and they're dying from drugs, and they're dying from suicide, and we have to do something about it. So you have to be verbal.
Absolutely, you do. And you mentioned the equine therapy. You've loved horses your entire life. You were an equestrian champion even as a teenager. I want to ask you about the work you do with horses in helping people heal from PTSD. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I bought the farm with where I am now, just outside of Nashville, 15 minutes outside of Nashville. And I was in my early 60s and I didn't want to show anymore. I had bred horses and showed the A circuit, and I love them. And I love this country. And I love our military. And I love our heroes. And I love our babies. And I love our girls. And so I came in, I said, God, what am I going to do with this passion? You're going to make me cry. With this passion I have for the horses who are so unique. God was in a good mood when he made a horse. They're amazing animals. They're flight animals, so they mirror what you present them. And so dealing with PTSD, and I don't like to label people, but everyone has PTSD. Life today is shock and awe, period. So we've opened up to beyond the military first responders and their family. We're open to anyone with issues of trauma, sexual abuse, post-abortive healing, any of those things. But the horses are amazing. And what I've seen over the last 15 years, I've created a curriculum out of the real life issues. I'm on the verge of doing a TV series based and shot here to expand our territory by letting people know the magic of what the horses can do as a backdrop. And they are amazing. We've saved lives. We have ambassadors who've gone through programs here. We have the Harvest program. So it's the real deal. And I don't ride anymore, but I've had more fun on the ground helping people through the innate. Horses know how to they'll take your tension, they'll take your hurt, and they know how to lay it down. That's the problem. We don't know how to leave it alone. We don't know how to lay it down and not pick it up again. And you can lay it down and then fill it up with the good stuff. And that's what equine therapy does.
I want to tell our viewers that you can get more information about the work Jennifer is doing at Hill and Glade by going to the website hillandglade.org. Jennifer, I have to say my heart skipped a beat when you said that you are going to be doing a TV series, because I want to ask you, do you miss showbiz? You're not doing a lot in front of the camera these days. Do you want to do more?
What I get out of the programs that we have and that the way I can help people is more gratifying. And yet there's always a tug. I'm going to play a recurring role in the series of the horse whisperer, if you will. So that way I can come and go and do, but I'll be very present. I love to do parts that are here. I don't like to travel that much anymore, and I'm so full of life that is being renewed and restored. It's Hill and Glade is HHH is a renewal center. So we're teaching people how to do what we do here. So we can expand the hoof print and help people all across. But acting, love it, love it. I'm here. I'm just not in Hollywood. And I think you have to be there to get the roles. I think you have to be present there. And I'm here.
Do you ever allow yourself to think about the fact that people remember you, they love you, you touched their lives by your performances, as well as the books and the work you do at Hill and Glade?
It is gratifying. I think back on the people who are so kind and have such good memories of my work and are very uplifting about that. It touches a different part of my heart than helping people survive. I'm very honored. I'm very honored when people, there's a whole generation, you say JenniferONeill, that go, who? But for the most part, people can relate to between the cover girls and even younger generations that still love John Wayne, and I'll pop up there or I'll pop up here and there. So I'm just honored to do both. And I think that the first half of my life was spent doing that and perhaps being recognized for that, which would give me a platform to go to Zambia, Africa for HIV, or to work for the American Cancer Society, or do all of those things. So yeah, I think it's a nice milkshake here.
Are you happy with your life now? You had so much unhappiness and so much stress. Are you happy?
I am, and I'm ecstatic in my faith because I finally found the truth and something to really stand on solid foundation. So no matter how I feel, I get the wind blows everyone here and there, but I have a beautiful place to light and land. And so, yes, I'm very happy and very blessed, very, very blessed.
Well, I think God was in a very good mood when he decided to create you,
Oh, well.
not just the horses. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and having this chance to reminisce about your life, your career, all the important work you're doing. Thank you for sharing your talent and so much of your life and your energy with all of us. Most of all, thank you so much for taking the time to appear on our show, Jennifer. I've loved every moment.
This is my favorite interview ever. I really had fun. You do your homework, the warmth that you exude, the care, it just made me feel comfortable and want to do it. And I'm so glad I did. Thank you so much.
Well, that means the world to me. I cannot thank you enough. Our guest has been the incomparable JenniferONeill. For more information about Ms. O'Neill and all of her projects, books, speaking engagements, and other activities, please visit her official website, JenniferONeill.com. And once again, for more information about the Hope and Healing at Hill and Glade programs and events, please go to hillandglade.org. My name's Harvey Brownstone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time. Thank you to my producers, Steve Silver, my managers, Rick Marcelli and Robin Bragg Marcelli of the Marcelli Company in Hollywood, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my editor, Isaiah Sharalampidis, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.